The arena of Thalrune was carved from black stone and lit by the burning auroras of a dying star. Tens of thousands of Dravkarn filled the Colosseum, their scales shimmering in the dim crimson light. They had come to witness blood, the kind of blood that proved their empire's supremacy. At the center, behind a shimmering energy barrier, the albino war beast paced in silence. Its massive claws scraped sparks against the obsidian floor. Once, it had been unleashed upon entire worlds, cities razed, fleets crushed, planets silenced. It had no name, only a title. Kor, the White Death. Today, the Empire would feed it something new, something small, something human. Guards dragged Lila Carter, 8 years old, across the sand. Her bare feet stumbled over shards of stone, her breath shallow but steady. She still clutched the torn remains of a plush rabbit, a toy from the colony her people once called New Virginia. Her parents were gone. Their screams burned into the metal memory of invasion sirens. The Dravkarn High Speaker raised his clawed hand for silence. "Behold, the child of Earth, a weak creature of flesh and noise. Let this sacrifice remind the galaxy that the Dravkarn bow to no one, least of all humans." Lila didn't understand his words, but she understood his tone. Hatred. Cruelty. She lifted her chin anyway. The tears in her eyes reflected the firelight, and for a moment even the guards hesitated, as if something in her gaze reminded them of stars long forgotten. The energy gate hissed open. The warbeast turned. Every instinct in the arena screamed. Even the air seemed to recoil. Kor's pale eyes burned like twin moons, its breath a furnace. The ground trembled as it stepped forward, its fangs glinting in the light. Lila took a step back, clutching her toy so tight the seams tore. She whispered, "It's okay. It's okay," though her voice shook. The creature roared, a thunderous, bone-shattering sound that made the audience cheer. Metal restraints burst as it lunged toward her, but stopped. Just a breath away, its massive snout hovered inches from her face. The girl didn't move. Neither did the beast. Kor's nostrils flared. It sniffed the air, then the toy in her hands. Its eyes flicked down, then back up, and softened. Gasps echoed through the stands. The warbeast lowered its head. Lila reached out a trembling hand, touched the fur that had seen centuries of war, and whispered, "You're not bad. They just hurt you." A sound rippled from Kor's throat, not a growl, but something like a whimper. The guards froze. The Emperor himself leaned forward from his throne. "Impossible," he hissed. "No one tames the albino deathwolf." But there it was, the impossible. A tiny human hand resting on the muzzle of a galactic monster, and a warbeast bowing its head for the first time in its life. The arena stayed silent long after the creature bowed. The Dravkarn were a race that worshipped strength, but what they saw now was something they had no word for. The albino warbeast, slayer of battalions, breaker of sieges, stood still, allowing a fragile human child to rest her tiny hand against its snout. Lila didn't understand why the monster had stopped, only that she wasn't afraid anymore. Its breath was warm, its fur softer than she imagined. Around them, guards whispered and aimed their plasma rifles, but none dared fire. The Emperor's voice cut through the confusion, sharp and furious. "Sedate the creature, remove the human." Dozens of soldiers rushed forward. Energy whips cracked, nets fired, but the moment one struck Lila's shoulder, Kor moved. The air exploded with motion. The beast's roar shattered the energy barriers, hurling shock waves through the stands. Soldiers flew like ragdolls. The plasma nets melted under its claws. Lila stumbled backward, falling hard onto the sand. Dust and smoke filled her lungs. Then she felt something massive shield her from the falling debris. Kor had crouched over her, forming a wall of white fur and muscle. When the smoke cleared, the arena was chaos. Scientists screamed for containment. The Emperor's guards dragged him to safety. And amid the ruin, the human child and the war beast sat quietly together, the calm center of the storm. They locked eyes again. This time, something passed between them. Lila didn't know what it was. An image, a feeling, maybe even a thought? Pain, loneliness, the same emptiness she'd felt since her parents were gone. The same hollow she saw now behind those glowing eyes. Later, they were taken to a research facility deep beneath the capital. Kor was chained inside a reinforced containment dome, and Lila was placed in a glass observation room beside it. Every day, scientists ran endless scans, tests, and probes, trying to understand what had happened in the arena. Every night, when the lights dimmed, Lila pressed her hand to the glass. Kor would do the same. She spoke softly to it, about Earth, about how the rain smelled like metal and flowers, about her mother's voice when she sang. The beast never replied, but its breathing changed when she spoke, slow and steady, as if listening. Soon, the guards noticed something alarming. Kor refused to eat or sleep unless Lila was nearby. The creature's aggression vanished completely in her presence. But the moment she was taken away, its rage returned tenfold. The Empire's High Council gathered in secret. "This bond defies logic," one scientist hissed. "No human should be capable of influencing Dravkarn war biology." "Then it is not logic. It is contamination. Destroy them both." That night, as guards marched toward the containment room with their weapons ready, Kor raised its head suddenly, ears twitching, eyes glowing brighter than ever. Lila jolted awake from her cot as she felt it too. Danger! The walls trembled, the beast growled, metal restraints creaking as it strained against them. Somewhere deep inside her, Lila whispered, "Don't be scared. I'm here." And in answer, the creature's thoughts pulsed softly through her mind. Not scared, waiting. The sky above the Dravkarn capital burned red as alarms screamed across the fortress. Every monitor in the research complex flashed the same warning. Containment breach, Alpha-class entity. In her glass chamber, Lila sat upright, clutching her toy rabbit to her chest. She could feel it before the guards even reacted. That deep, rhythmic vibration under her feet. Kor was moving, and nothing in the galaxy could stop him now. Soldiers ran past her cell, shouting commands. The floor trembled with every impact of the beast's claws. Plasma blasts thundered through the corridors, followed by the sound of metal collapsing. Through the chaos, she heard it, his roar, raw and defiant, echoing down the steel halls. "Contain him!" barked the commander. "Do not let the human escape!" The command was cut off by a crash that shook the entire wing. Sparks rained down as walls split open, and a blinding shape burst through the smoke. Kor's fur gleamed like moonfire, his eyes locked on the tiny figure inside the cell. "Lila!" The door shattered before she even reached it. Energy glass exploded into shards, but none of them touched her. Kor's body took the hit, shielding her completely. The air smelled of burning plasma and ozone. Leela threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his fur. "You came back," she whispered. He rumbled low in his chest. The sound felt like comfort, like home. The corridors filled with more soldiers. Drones descended from above, mechanical wings slicing the air. Kor snarled, crouched, and launched forward. Leela held tight as they tore through the facility, dodging fire, explosions lighting the halls like a hellish sunrise. When they burst through the outer gate, the dawn was just breaking over the capital, an alien sun casting long crimson shadows. Below them stretched the endless spires of the Drovkarn city, and beyond that, the dark horizon of the wasteland. Kor paused, breathing heavily. His body bore scorch marks, but his eyes stayed fixed on the open sky. Leela looked at the chaos behind them, the burning towers, the sirens, the Empire collapsing into confusion. She heard Kor's roar enter her mind, not as a sound, but as a command, something ancient and familiar. "We make them listen." From her satchel, Leela pulled out a small device, a stolen transmitter from the lab. Her hands trembled as she switched it on. The static cleared, and her voice carried across every frequency of the Drovkarn network. "My name is Leela Carter. You call us fragile. You call us prey. But one of your greatest monsters chose to protect me, because I showed him kindness. Maybe that's what you fear most." Her voice, soft but steady, spread through the Empire, echoing in command rooms, battleships, and slave colonies. For the first time in centuries, silence fell over Drovkarn space. Then, from distant worlds, something began to happen. Beasts once enslaved refused to fight. Chains shattered. Neural control signals failed. As the sun rose over the burning capital, Kor lifted his head and howled, a sound so powerful it made the spires tremble. And far across the stars, millions began to rise. The Dravkarn Empire had never known silence before. Their cities were built on roars, on conquest, on the endless hum of war machinery. But now, across hundreds of worlds, the silence was deafening. Lila's message had reached every corner of their dominion, from the slave pits of Arul to the storm mines of Vector. Alien soldiers stared at their screens in disbelief. The image was everywhere. A small human child standing beside the albino war beast, her hand resting against its fur, her voice trembling but unbroken. "If kindness can tame your deadliest monster, then maybe your empire isn't strong. Maybe it's just afraid." And the galaxy had listened. Now the empire was unraveling. Beasts bred for war refused to obey their masters. Ships mutinied mid-flight, entire battalions laid down their weapons. The Emperor watched the chaos from his obsidian throne, claws digging into the armrests. "Find the girl," he growled. "Bring me her head." But it was too late. Outside the capital, the wastelands burned with rebellion. Kor carried Lila through the storm, his fur streaked with ash, his eyes reflecting the fires below. She sat upright on his back, scanning the horizon where lightning split the clouds. For the first time, she didn't feel small. She felt heard. They stopped at the ruins of the great arena, the place where it all began. The once grand stands now lay in rubble, the Emperor's banners torn by the wind. Lila slid off Kor's back and walked slowly to the center of the cracked floor. "I'm tired of running," she said softly. Kor lowered his head beside her. She rested her palm against his snout. "Then we stand." Moments later, a fleet of black Dravkarn dropships descended through the storm. Soldiers poured out, weapons glowing, forming a ring around the pair. The Emperor himself stepped forward, his armor gleaming like obsidian fire. "You think this changes anything, child? You think you've won?" She met his gaze without flinching. "I didn't win. You lost. You taught your people that fear was strength. I just reminded them what strength really looks like." The Emperor raised his blade, roaring, but before he could strike, the ground trembled. All across the horizon, thousands of freed beasts appeared, marching in unison. The air shook with their collective growl, an army of monsters who refused to be weapons anymore. The Emperor turned, realization dawning in his eyes, and for the first time in his reign, he felt fear. Kor stepped forward, towering over him, and released a single low snarl. The Emperor stumbled back, his crown falling into the dirt. Lila looked up at the dark sky, tears streaking her dust-covered face. "Let's go home," she whispered. Kor leaned down, and she climbed onto his back once more. Together, they vanished into the rising dawn. A child and a beast, legend and myth. And as their silhouette faded, the Dravkarn Empire finally fell silent, not in defeat, but in awakening, because the galaxy would forever remember the little human girl who taught its fiercest monster how to feel.